Kurt and Denette Schaer with the Broken for Better podcast.
And we are a marriage ministry that believes that you can pick up something today to make your relationship better. Enjoy.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
That's right.
Look at us starting our April series.
I can't believe it's already April.
The one with.
The one with.
Hey, listen.
Yeah.
Before we go too far.
Yeah.
Just a heads up, at the end of this podcast, we will give away a free registration for our May 6th marriage intensive.
That's right.
Right here in Dade City, Florida. A free registration. So stick around. We'll
I'm excited. It's our first one.
Our first one.
I know. I'm excited.
It's going to be
very
awesome.
excited.
We're going to love it. We're going to love it. But first, the one with kids.
The one with the kids.
Here we are, two best friends. We've been able to raise three beautiful young men over our 26 years of marriage. And so today we're just going to kind of talk about things we did right, things we did wrong. Let's just be vulnerable and authentic like we are every week and just try to be as transparent as possible. So we got married 19 and 20.
Right.
Had
Babies.
Kids 2.5 years later.
What are we thinking? I know. 2.5 years later. So 21 and 20. Were you 23? 23?
21 and 23.
So most of our friends were still in college and
Yes,
we were
they were.
having children. Yes.
So talk to me about this. For young people that are having kids, would you recommend it? Do you think it was a good move? Do you think we were crazy? What were we thinking? Would you do it different? Where's your thought on that?
I mean, there's definitely pros and cons. I think we hear so many couples that are like, oh, we want to wait until this or until that, until, they feel financially stable or until there's pros and cons. Like for us, we had so little money. And there's definitely some things that are really harsh with that. On this side of things, I'm thankful for how we did it young because we were young parents. We were able to really enjoy our kids. We were able to just be super involved and super there. But that doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes that really doesn't work for everyone. And I remember coming home pregnant with Dylan saying, I think God has told me to stay home and be a full-time mom. and at the time, we were pretty much making about the same income.
Oh, I can tell you exactly what we're making. Because
do you remember exactly? That doesn't
4 years later, it's
surprise me.
embedded in my brain. I was making $11.85 and you were making $11.35.
I thought I was making $12.50.
You were not.
Oh, okay.
So actually, it was $12.85 and $12.50. You were absolutely right.
Thank you. I really thought I was making $12.50. So I was so loaded. I mean, I was
You were loaded.
loaded. But we were basically taking our income and splitting it in half. And I said, God told me, I think I'm supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. And you weren't even walking with Jesus at the time. So you were like, God told me nothing. So that was a fun conversation.
It's really crazy because I do think priorities for us, we both wanted children.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think there was a willingness to sacrifice and whatever and just try to figure out, even though I didn't hear from the Lord and even though I wasn't even seeking the Lord in that, I was just liking the practice of trying to make babies.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was. So, it's like, okay, we got one coming. Great. Now you got to stay home. Excellent. We got to figure this out.
Yeah.
To your point, I do think a lot of people want to have all their ducks in a row.
Right. Yeah.
Before they do that, which I don't necessarily see anything wrong with
There's
that.
There's definitely wisdom there.
There is some wisdom there.
Yes.
But then I also see those same people have kids so late that they do miss some of the enjoyment, and there is an exhaustion in raising young kids. And so there's also a different side of that as well. It does have its pros and cons.
Yeah.
I don't think I would change 1 minute of it, honestly.
I don't think so either, but there is a fine line between wisdom and waiting until you know that you're ready, because some couples just are not ready. Looking back, I really don't know that we were ready, but God.
Are you ever really ready?
I don't know. That's a good question. But I mean, there's wisdom though in waiting until you think you're ready, but then also not operating out of fear, because like you said, I don't know that you ever are totally ready, and it's always going to be a strain financially. Like for us, the way we kind of did it was we were going to do what? We were going to put, I think I put the money that I would normally make during my leave, we put it in the bank, and we just wanted to see if we could find a way to live off your income for for those 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, we were still doing it. So we were like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to try it. And so like, yeah, are you ever ready? I don't know.
After 3 months, I remember saying, did God still say, or is it time to go back?
Do you
now?
still like ramen noodles? I was like, I do. I do like ramen noodles.
Exactly. So we have Dylan, 97 or 99.
99. We got married in 97.
We have Dylan in 99. And then 17, 19 months later.
Yeah, almost 19 months, not quite.
What wisdom is there in having kids that close?
That was close. That was not planned. We do know how it happens, but it was not planned. But they were the best of friends. You know, they were so close. They were literally like a year and a half apart. So I remember being physically ill and having a baby tugging on my shirt, like, you know, checking on me, that had crawled in there because he wasn't even walking yet. And I was in the first trimester, you know, so that was pretty close. But,
you know,
yeah.
And I think about that time, and that was probably, you know, for me, I think that was a harder time. I loved our boys. I loved this family unit that we had.
Yeah.
I did not like what I was doing at the time.
Right.
It also took so much of you as a spouse that I sacrificed a lot in that time. And because I wasn't dying to self and I was really selfish during those years, it caused a lot of tension and a lot of strain because I was less active because you were so in tune with the kids that I was less around the house and doing what. And those were all excuses, right? Like, I helped make the babies. I wanted the babies. I loved the babies. But I remember being like all up in my feels and that being a very like hard, 2 kids in diapers running around crazy. And it was almost easier to be away, right? Like even though I hated what I was doing, didn't like what I was doing, created really an unhealth in me. And so, man, I'll say I love the fact, especially now that they're older, it's like amazing, right? That they're doing everything together with our daughters, and it's wonderful. But it's like in that time, I would just encourage every man, like, be ready for that. Understand, like, there is a season where it is even more dying to self to surround your family with a unit that needs your help. It needs your leadership. Your wife needs your guidance and needs your help around the home because it's just an exhausting time.
And I don't think like anyone realizes that when you talk about, you know, we talk about how marriage is sacrificial, right? And how the best marriages are those that like compete to outserve the other, right? And die to self and sacrifice and all of that. And we keep encouraging that. But then when you take children and add them into the picture, it's like another layer of just sacrifice. And whereas I think a lot of times, especially when we're sitting in front of couples that are dealing with that tension of adding children into the mix and handling the juggling of the day-to-day, of the late nights and the no sleep and all of those things, that can be so stressful for the guy, especially if he's out providing, or the woman if she's doing both and, because there's a lot of couples that don't have that privilege. And I say that was a privilege for me to be able to stay home. I do not take that lightly. But if you are doing both and either or, there's a sacrifice on both sides. And so not viewing what your spouse is doing in that season, whether or not it's sacrificing to provide or sacrificing with the late nights or doing it hopefully together, sacrificing, it is sacrifice upon sacrifice upon sacrifice. And I don't think anyone goes into parenting thinking, I can't wait to sacrifice. Like, you go in thinking, oh, I can't wait to have the cute clothes, and I can't wait to have, the giggles on film, and I can't wait for the cuddles.
You think those spandex pants that go up around your belly are cute?
I was talking about the baby's clothes, you weirdo.
Oh.
Not maternity clothes. What is wrong?
Proceed.
I was meaning the little baby clothes.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So you go in thinking of all of those really cute things about the really, the Instagram highlights of having a baby, but you don't think about when you have 3 under 5 and they all have the stomach bug. And you know, barely have insurance and you're trying to figure out which kid to take to the doctor, who's sick. You know, those are things that are real life and stresses that it's literally sacrifice upon sacrifice upon sacrifice. And yet finding the beauty in that takes a lot of maturity. And so I think when we were so young, yes, there were some benefits to that, but there were also some things we weren't quite ready for when it came to those sacrifices, for sure.
I think about even the maturity part of it. We weren't even mature enough to, we couldn't do a lot of stuff.
Right.
I remember making calls to our parents all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, being willing to be okay with what you don't know.
And ask for help.
Like, you're trying to figure this thing out. Like, you've never been a parent before, right? Half the time you grew up saying you'll never do it like your parents, and then you get into it, you do it just like your parents. It's like, that's crazy. So you're trying to figure this whole thing out. Be willing to get people around you that have been a little farther down the journey that you trust and respect to go, hey, what do you do? I think a lot of times we want to watch, YouTube videos of people we don't know that have this way to do it, or we want to read a book. But man, when you get in that game time situation, it's just different. Yeah. And so I just like in your marriage where we say, hey, find that person, find that coach, find that spotter that can come around and go, hey, listen, I see a couple things you need to work on. Even in those young years, no matter if you're young having kids or you're older having kids, man, find those people just so you can rub shoulders with and just like dialogue so you don't feel like you're in this canoe by yourself.
Yeah. And same thing we say with marriage, right? Like, you don't want to feel like you're on this isolated island, but parenting's the same way. And I remember for us, Dylan being the firstborn, he was a pretty easy baby. Like, he was like very easy when it came to, you would tell him no and his little lip would quiver, and like, he was just such a little obedient kid, and then with each one, their personalities were just so different. Yeah. And you're like, how do you have, multiple children with the same two parents, the same DNA, and they literally are born with different personalities and different, and you're literally sitting there looking at other parents like, wow, like, you really need to work on that. And then all of a sudden you have another child and you're like, oh, okay. Like, I need to figure this out.
I think that's why we had Nathan so fast, because we felt like, bro, we might be the greatest parents on the planet. Like,
I don't think we actually intended to.
Because Dylan was so good.
Yeah.
Then Nathan comes out. And we find we got one that when he gets upset, he just starts slamming his head against the wall.
He did like to hit his head against the wall.
And we're thinking...
But he doesn't do that anymore.
We don't know. Maybe he does.
Maybe he does. We could ask his wife. I don't think so.
Corinne's like, why do you just hit your head on the wall? Then it was like, well, we better back off a little bit. And then you have Logan, which is total different personality, total firecracker, total life of everything.
Literally would scale the walls like a monkey with his fingers and toes. Yeah, crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so you go from this infant status where they're, under 5, and then you go into, let's go child rearing. Okay, let's go when they were elementary age, because that was a crazy time. We did a lot of moving. There was a lot of transition in our lives during that time as well. Give me like a couple of and you don't know any of these questions, so this is gonna be off the top of the dome. And
okay.
Speaking of dome, I like your little.
Oh, do you like
bun
this?
You got going
this
on
bun
today.
is my bun. This is my nod to all moms. It's the messy bun today.
Nod to moms. Yes. Excellent. Cool.
No, somebody told me the last time they watched me with this, they knew it was about to get real. That what was about to get real because I had my messy bun. So I was like,
what's about to get
poop? The poop was about to hit the fan.
Is that what they said?
That's what they said.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have this in because actually I didn't want to do my hair. But I was like, you know what? It's perfect. We're talking about kids. And this is how I wear it all the time.
When you had kids, that's basically what it looked like.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they go into elementary. We're moving around a lot. Give me one thing in their elementary years that you go, man, I was really like proud of the way we did this. I know I have one really quick.
I mean, for me, I think being as involved as we were, whether it was being in the, at the school volunteering or whether we homeschooled it, a couple of years, we did it all. We literally took every year. That's one thing I'm really proud of. We didn't go in and saying, you're going to do this type of schooling. You're going to do this type of thing. You're going to do this type of, we would pray about it. And it was year to year, kid to kid, some kids were in school, some kids were homeschooled, some kids were in a private school. We really tried to do what we felt was best for that child in that season, because each child was very, very different. But we were very involved, whether it was in their school, in their lives, sports. You coached every single one of our boys at some point. Even sports we didn't really fully know, so I don't know how great
None
those
of them made
seasons
it professional, so that gives you that coaching
but they
ability.
did great. They did great. But I'm really proud of that.
I definitely would say involved. That is one that I'll never take for granted, especially our season of life now. Like never, ever take that for granted. The other thing that I would especially challenge dads on is I'm really proud that we never tried to live vicariously through our kids.
Yeah.
We allowed them to think on their own, what they wanted to do, what they wanted to be a part of, and then we held their arms up in that.
Yeah.
I think having played baseball and softball our whole lives, our dream was like, that's what our kids are going to play.
Yeah.
And we had a couple that wanted no part.
Nathan was the only one that really wanted to play. The
Right.
others were like,
They're
nerd.
like, we ain't doing that. That's boring.
It's the most boring sport.
And I think trying to live, I think so many times parents, especially dads, have this ability to like, we only made it so far and our kid's going to go where we didn't. And we try to live vicariously. And so we drive hard and we push hard, and we're really driving them and pushing them in things that they don't really care for.
Yeah.
They don't really like. And everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And so it's like they're sacrificing something to do this thing.
Yeah.
That really, it's the dream of the father. And so I think I'm really proud that one, we were involved, but then two, we never tried to live vicariously through them.
And I think that can go both ways. It can go for both the father and the mother. I think we have seen that, especially in a lot of counseling sessions of, tension with family life, whether it's sports, whether it's academics even. I think a lot of times what we didn't do to excess, we want our kids to do in excess. And so maybe we didn't, have the career we wanted, so we push our kids as hard as possible. Or maybe the best days of our lives were on the football field, and so we want our kids to be all of those things. And I think when you look back at someone's life and all they can tell you is the victories of their past, it's so sad. Like, it's very saddening when someone's greatest stories were their high school stories, And we all have met people that, like they're still living through their high school glory, and you're like, oh, and I just never wanted our kids that to be their greatest. Like, whatever they're in right now, I pray that's their greatest,
So that's really good. I truly do pray that their best days are ahead of them. So we talked about the highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any area that you would go, man, if I could change that, or if I would change the way we did that? Is there one of those that just be an encouragement to a parent to go, yeah, we're a little farther down the road and this is what we did. We might do that differently.
Ugh, I might get emotional on that one. Walking through what we're walking through, you always have things you'd fix. There's things you'd do different, but I would say keep the main thing the main thing. And I know we've said that before, but the little things that feel so big, if you're in the toddler years, the tantrums, the whatever, they just feel like huge, like they'll never end. You get into adolescence and it's the stinky messy and the, whatever, and they just feel so big. And of course you want to raise well-rounded adults that take showers and are clean, like normal things. But, the main thing, keeping it the main thing. And I think we definitely attempted to keep our focus on the things that were important and of value to us, but asking yourself, hey, what is my end all? What is it that I want my kid when they leave? Because you have 18 summers. If you're lucky, you have 18 summers. So what do I want my child to leave with? When they leave, what do I want them leaving knowing about who they are and about what carries weight in this universe? Not even in this world, but in this universe. What has value? What ends after I leave home? What do I take with me after I leave home?
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah.
That's really good. I think for me, first off, I'll say thanks. Adolescence was the word I was looking for. That's exactly what I needed.
What did I say?
I was saying like elementary age.
Oh.
It's adolescence. I think for me, I'll never forget when one of my sons, when God changed my heart when I submitted my heart to the Lord and everything about me changed, I really became this person that loved people, and I love hearing about people and hearing your story, and I love hearing everything, and I just became this. I always wanted to be around the church, doing what the church people did, and living life with the church people. And I'll never forget when one of my sons said, "Man, I'm just excited to be out from your shadow." And man, I remember how like it cut me, because I never want my kids to be like that. I never wanted them to be like that. I want them to be their own people.
Of course.
But I got so larger than life for people, because that's what fueled me, that my kids just kind of got drug along into everything that I was doing. And I think if I could change, if I could ever go back and do that to where, I think I got better. But it was one of those things that, like, man, allow your children to flourish in who they are. Man, really support them in their dreams, and hold their arms up and let them do the things that they desire to do, and not just drug around like little ducklings behind you, So that would be one thing for me for sure. So
yeah, and just realizing that each child, I think at the very beginning, again, we were so young, you never try your best to just never compare. Each child is uniquely and designedly purposed, and whether that be, extroverted, introverted, athletic, creative, all of those things, challenging them to be who God created them to be is so important. And I don't remember where I've heard it. I know I've said it before. I know I'll say it again, but this quote just drilled into me, and I tried my best as a mom to speak to my kids this way. And the quote is, "Speak to the fool and the fool will stand up. Speak to the king and the king will stand." And calling out of your kids what their giftings are, calling out who you see them being. And yes, they might be strong-willed, and they might be just full of life. Almost it feels too full. I remember specifically telling Logan, "You're going to lead for good or you're going to lead for bad, because you are a leader. And you get the choice, but you are a leader." And so calling out those giftings in your kids, and calling out the things that you see as potential, even if you don't see it right now. There's giftings in that strong will.
Yeah.
There's giftings in that passive, tender meekness. So calling it out in what you see, there's a reason why God gave them those personalities, And
that's so good. That's really good. And kids being different than us in a lot of ways, being able to see those strong suits, and even if they're not your strong suit, still being able to speak life and call that out. That's a big, big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal. I would definitely I hope the fathers hear that too. You know what I mean? I think we so many times I always, I said this when doing things, that you can tell people 10 good things about them and one negative, and they'll always remember the negative. They forget the 10 good things.
I know I'm that way.
And
I'm so bad.
I would just, encourage dads, man, really, really work on speaking to that soldier or that queen that's inside of that child.
Yeah.
And watch that person rise.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it. All right. Let's go to the greatest years.
The greatest
The
years?
teenage years.
I actually really like the teenage years. Most of them I really
Me too.
did.
13.
Oh, okay. Maybe not 13.
Yeah, 13 to 17. Now, I will tell you this. We were in a completely different phase of life then.
Yeah.
Really chasing the Lord, really seeking all the Lord has. Our kids, man, they were so fluid in the different ministries, and just got to see a lot of ministry. And I think went to 19 summer camps. I mean, it was just like every summer camp we ever did, they were at. And so I really do love and will remember a lot of the teenage years, because I do think they were good. There's a couple things that happen in the teenage years that as a mom, I want you to speak to. We only had boys, so we're going to speak to testosterone, around 13 or 14.
Okay. Yeah, that's all we really know.
Let's speak to that.
Okay.
Tell me, how did you manage, or what was some tools that you had as a mom with that 13, 14, 15-year-old that was they all of a sudden got hair under their armpit, and now all of a sudden they're somebody, right? Like now they run the house. How did you deal with that? Because you were not one to go, wait till your dad gets home. Wait till your dad gets home. Like, like that really didn't happen. You pretty much handled things on your own, and there was a lot of honor and respect there. And sometimes it got pretty hairy. And so how did you, like, what's your MO there? What encouragement could you give to that mom who's about to walk into a season or is in it going, I don't understand. I can't even reach this kid anymore.
I will say, if you are raising young men, if you're not at 13 or 14 yet, start now. Respect is taught very young, and it's very difficult. It can be done, but it's very difficult if you wait until those hormones hit to start saying, oh, now we need to start working on respect, because I think it's very important. I think we really did try to stay on the same page together as a couple. We definitely have different disciplinary styles, and we could talk about that. That's another podcast for another day. But so we would, have to communicate and work through that as a couple. But, regarding the boys hitting that age, it was very funny because I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of praying. And thank God the Holy Spirit would wake me up in the middle of the night for those boys for multiple different seasons. But I remember specifically stumbling on something talking about what testosterone does for boys is kind of similar to what girls go through when, they hit that same age, whereas they might be more emotional. They might be, a little bit more difficult on the girls' end. Boys can tend to get angry. Boys can tend to push back and want to fight for their manhood and fight to be seen and fight to step into their own. And so it just gave me a different revelation of like, okay, they're struggling emotionally. They just aren't processing it the same. So instead of crying, they're getting angry. And so we had a lot of nights. Each boy was different. Our oldest was a stuffer, didn't like to talk about much. Our middle son would tell you everything, but it was either the best day or the worst day ever, and then Logan is a lot like you, so you had to do a lot of more communicating with him because it was a little more interesting. But there were a couple times that I remember telling them, 1, you will like me again one day. 2, I know you're growing things, but you're not going to speak to me like that. And then there were a couple times that, they had to work it out. Like if you're going to talk to me that way, we're going to let you work out your anger. And so you're not going to do anything else. All these things that are gifts of yours, we want you to have the world. We're going to give you the phone. We're going to give you the video games. We're going to give you access to our TV and all these things. But those aren't necessities. Those are gifts. And if you can't respect us in our home and you can't respect the things we're trying to give you, then those things aren't going to be yours. Those weren't fun conversations.
No.
But we kind of held to our guns with that with them.
I would tend to say too, along with all that, because I think you handled those conversations extremely well, and I think you did an amazing job as a mom going through 3 teenage boys like that. But I will tell you, a lot of behaviors and a lot of attitudes and a lot of responses are caught and not taught. How a husband speaks to his wife,
very true,
is how a son's going to speak to his mom. How a wife treats her husband has potential of how a daughter treats her dad. It also then morphs into their marriage relationship. What they saw their dad do to their mom, they now think is okay for their spouse.
Right.
And so I think, if parents would realize and really think about everything you do is being caught. They're watching everything you do and every response. So if when I'm upset, I don't yell and snap at you.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely know that when they're upset, yelling at you is not going to be a thing.
Right.
Like that is one thing that I demanded from them. I didn't care how upset and angry they got at me. They were going to show zero disrespect to you. Like that just wasn't a thing. And so we knew like that was just a foundational rule in our home.
What was the one word you would just say short and quick if anybody got out of line, like started to raise their voice just a little bit with mom?
Yo.
Yo. It was just yo. And the house would just go silent because like, oh, dad's for real.
Yeah,
Yo.
because I think but like we can't have them stuff emotions.
Correct.
If they're upset, they've got to be able to work that out, but there's a healthy way to do that.
Right.
And if you don't teach them healthy ways to work that stuff out,
right.
well, now they're 33 years old and they don't know how to work things out healthy.
Yeah.
And they're still an unhealthy individual.
Right.
And so I just encourage you, like, be willing to fight the hard battles.
Yeah.
Be willing to walk through we were all there. We were all in those scenarios that we hated our parents. We didn't agree with anything they said. They were the dumbest people on the planet. We could do it better. We were smarter, like, and think about now, the kids have so much access to digital.
Right.
Like, we didn't even have that,
Right.
Now they got every kind of app, and now I'm having to tell them, well, you can't have that app. Well, everybody under the planet has that app. Well, in this house, you can't have that app.
I remember telling all three of them, when you sit in therapy a few years from now, and we have totally messed you up because we haven't let you have access to everything on the internet, then you can just tell them, my parents messed me up, and we're sorry. We're doing the best we can. We're the first generation having to deal with this as parents. Like, we don't know what we're doing, so
crazy.
we're probably messing you up, and we're doing the best that we can. Yeah.
The other thing is we were very intentional in our kids' lives. We didn't let TV and cell phones and iPads didn't raise our kids.
Right.
We did.
Yeah.
And I just encourage you, it can be tiring, it can be exhausting, but the more that you are involved and the more you are in those kids' lives, the more equity and the more seeds you're planting to harvest the fruit that you want.
Very good.
Speaking of fruit, this brings up a great point.
Oh,
I love this. This is like your deal that we have told this to so many people. Dating. Okay.
Yes.
Dating. That's a whole crazy, and with boys, 2 days into the relationship, they love them. This is it. We're going to get married. I think this is the one,
Yeah.
And then it's like
starting in like 6th grade.
It's starting in 6th grade, right? It's like crazy, crazy, crazy. But you had this thing that you used to tell all the boys.
Yep.
Okay. And I want to say it just because I love saying it. But I'm low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit.
I don't even know. I think I saw it somewhere, and I don't even know where
You
I
just
saw
need
it
to.
from.
You just need to cop that thing. Like, that's yours.
I think I did see it somewhere. I don't remember. I really don't.
Well,
or I don't remember.
Can you just break down real quick for anyone who's listening, their kids are going into dating.
Yes.
Can you just kind of break this down? Because I've told this to some dudes and they're like, oh, I'm taking that. Like, I'm telling my kids that. That's good. So kind of walk us through the whole metamorphosis of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Our boys, I'm not going to lie, stepping into the middle school age and, they start liking girls and all those things, that was scary for me, especially a mom with 3 boys, because like those are your babies, like I know you didn't have the girl thing, and I thank God, because I think you would have probably
I thank God.
You would have been an awful girl dad.
I
think
even
so. You would have been,
thank God,
I know, you would have been too protective. But anyways, I felt that same way when it came to our boys. And so I remember teaching them that, they would have a lot of, they were cute boys, good boys that loved, they were athletic, loved Jesus, all these things. And so I really tried to teach them that there's all different kinds of fruit on the tree. And the easiest fruit is the fruit that's just hanging low. And sometimes it's even falling off the tree. It's kind of throwing itself at you. It's really easy to attain. You don't have to work hard for it. But the best fruit, the fruit that is going to be the
I feel like
ripest.
You started using a voice
I know.
like you're telling us.
I'm sorry, but this is how I told them. I was so intentional that in order to get the best fruit, you had to be man enough to climb the tree. That you had the good character. You had to be strong enough. You had to be capable of getting to that tree. And what that took was being a real man. And you had to be chivalrous. You had to be generous. You had to be kind. You had to be a protector. You had to be a provider. All of those things. And only if you were that kind of man could you actually reach that kind of fruit. And so, yes, could you attain fruit that is really easy and maybe bruised and maybe, yes, but it's not going to be that fruit that I'm praying for you for. And so, that's kind of what.
So it was like the running joke around our house with the boys, because they've all heard this conversation 100 times. You want fruit at the top of the tree. And when she's talking to them, she's doing it real like nice and gentle right now. But there were some times though that was like, hey,
What
like,
kind of fruit?
What kind of fruit is this?
What are we
like,
looking at? Yeah.
Is this the fruit? This fruit is on the ground, or what are we doing right now? You know what I mean? And so
I don't think I ever said that. The
not
boys
about
yelled
anyone
that.
they dated, just in case anyone is watching that no one that they dated was low.
They would just be, let's say, someone would catch their eye, and I wouldn't even have to say anything. They would yell it at each other down the hallway. That's low hanging fruit.
That's the funniest part of this whole thing is when we would have conversations. Hey, I think I like so and so. Oh, really? And then out of nowhere, we would hear low-hanging fruit coming from
one of the other boys. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, if anyone could hear. And now we're literally sitting here telling the world. Like, yeah, but we were just trying to teach them to be intentional
That's it.
with what they were going after. Because you don't just pick up something that's rolling along. Like, what are you being intentional with who you're dating? Are you being intentional with who you're trying to pick out to be your spouse, the mother of your children one day?
Yeah, dating for our kids was always you can do this when this is the one that you believe is potentially the one you're going to marry.
Right.
Like that was the whole thing. And so it was not only are you're going to go after somebody that you think you can marry.
Right.
You're in this for the long haul, as well as you're going to ask their parents to even date them.
Why was that made a rule, Kurt? Do you remember why that was made a rule?
What?
7th grade, Dylan texting.
Oh,
do you remember?
Do I remember?
We were youth pastoring at the time. We come in to a youth service and we're walking down, and all of a sudden we're getting dirty looks by individuals and the individual's friends. And I'm like, what's happening? Something's weird. And then we quickly caught on that our oldest had texted the girl that he was dating at the time that we didn't know he was supposedly dating, because he had asked her out via text and broke up with her via text. And we were the youth pastors. So very quickly we had a family meeting that night that
the next series was on dating.
Yeah, the next series was on dating. The Lord said no. No, we sat them down, and you came up with the rule that said if you're going to be man enough to ask a girl to be your girlfriend, then one, she has to be someone that you're longing to marry, because that's why we date. And two, you have to be man enough to ask her father permission.
And that saved us on sometimes.
It did, but they did not like that rule. That was
because nobody else
is doing this. And we're like, we don't care. This is our rule. That slowed things down for a couple of years.
It does slow things down.
Yeah, that slowed things down. But man, that was a good rule.
So
yeah,
you killed the teenage years.
No, you did.
Very proud of you.
Thanks.
We did the best we could with what we had.
Yeah.
So then they transition to adults. Now we have two that are married, and what is it like now that you go from I always say we go from parenting to coaching. Like we've gone from parents to coaches now. We can't tell them what to do and how to do it. All we can do is coach, and this is what about for you? Like, how is the transition into adulthood?
I think at first it's very difficult. It's a little scary. I was kind of sad thinking, oh my goodness, like this part is over. But then as it kind of happens, you're like, oh, this is a little bit freeing, because you get to coach and say, hey, this is our advice. And then kind of like a coach does, like the big guys on first base, you kind of just get to sit there and cross your arms and say, okay, how are you going to do? Just watch, realizing that, you've done the best you can to shepherd. You've done the best you can to challenge and encourage. And you're there if they need more advice. And you're there if they need more coaching. And yet you just want to cheer them on as you watch, because you're no longer swinging the bat. You're no longer the one there throwing the pitches. You're literally saying, okay, it's your turn, and I get to coach you. And sometimes it's from first base. Sometimes you're out there a little bit more hands-on. And sometimes you're in the dugout and you're just watching from afar. And no matter, I feel led to say this because I think for the parent that might feel like, man, my kid doesn't let me coach them. No matter how close you are or how distant you are, you get to coach them spiritually because you get to battle on their behalf spiritually. Yeah. And you want them to finish well. No matter when they finish, you want them to finish well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely well said. And I do think, and I'm very glad you said that. I don't think I I take for granted sometimes our boys moving into adulthood. We've been blessed with 2 amazing daughters. It's like, man, we, and one's here. So, it's
good
like,
fruit, by the way.
good fruit. Good fruit. Top of the tree fruit. Top of the tree fruit.
Prayed fruit.
So I think we take for granted that aspect of it. We're finding it easy to coach, but we really have become, now growing up, I didn't want to be friends with my kids. I was their dad.
Yeah.
That we couldn't really be friends. And I think I find myself now really enjoying the moments that, man, I just get to be friends with them. Like they're grown and I get to sit on the back porch and we get to talk and we get to just do life together. And so, I just encourage you, like, the days are coming.
Yeah.
Like, know that there's a tomorrow. You may be going through a tough today, but stay faithful, stay prayerful, stay diligent in leading well and giving a great example. And there will be a day that those little eyeballs like to just hang around and laugh and joke and talk about crazy things, because that's the joy that we get now. So,
and no matter what the enemy wants to tell you, that the days, they seem long, but the years are short. The years are short. And if you have the joy to still have your kids, all of them, just remember to major on the majors.
Amen.
Because those things are the things that are going to last. Those things are the things that you will never regret teaching them and instilling in them.
Major on the majors. Don't major on the minors.
And make the memories.
I will tell you this, probably 18 summers. I think I'll remember that forever, the way that I would encourage every parent. That's what you got. Remember that. 18 summers to invest and equip them babies well before they hopefully go off and do everything that God's called them to do. So, okay. Anything else? I think
just a marriage intensive.
We got to give away the May 6th marriage intensive. May 6th. Look, it doesn't matter what season you're married.
Should we give a code word? Like what is the word? What is the phrase? If they get to enter, if they send us
I
this
think we take the phrase of this whole podcast. What is the phrase of this whole podcast?
I don't know.
Low-hanging fruit.
Oh, low-hanging fruit.
Look, even our daughter, she's like, low-hanging.
Even our producer.
Yes, low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit.
What we're going to do is every message that we get on YouTube,
or
fruit, email, direct message on Facebook, however message we'll get, come next Tuesday, the next podcast will release who the winner is of all the people that replied low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. We're
May
having a giveaway.
6th, mark it down. We want you to be a part. Your marriage may be great. All we want to do is equip you with more tools as you continue to strengthen the marriage muscles. We just want to be a fitness center to get better in our marriages as we all work to get better. Listen, we love you and thank you for joining us. Babe, you killed it. I'm so proud of you. And I want you to hear me say, you're an unbelievable mom.
Thank you. You're an unbelievable dad, and I'm really thankful that we got to raise these boys together.
Amen.
I love you.
All right. Till next time. We're out.